Cell phone number is 812.
How are you?
822-8763. Mr. Mayor, how you doing, sir?
Ross, how you doing?
Yeah.
3.
Ain't seen you in a few days.
Nice.
No, I ain't been out this week. Didn't go out this week. Yeah, probably.
Because everybody's been,
twice
you know,
more.
I said I better get something. You
nothing wrong.
need to email
I'll bring it back.
It's, okay.
I'll be fine with this.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Birthday Boy, how you doing? It's Tony's buddy, Cater. You're catching him.
I've got a list of things that I'm up in the meeting. So I can just guarantee you love it.
But you know,
You're gonna love it
thing, there's one thing about that,
Hey, I
Tony,
brought
he'll
a
never
couple
catch
extra
us.
copies for Tom and other people in the audience that want to put down the bid.
Things that I can get Kelly.
Because I know when I'm out there, I already gave them to them. Not that they appreciated it.
Tony, you need a thicker book of that.
Wait till you see the things I'm gonna bring up to the meeting.
Sure. Wait till you see the one on Brian. Hi, Brian, how you doing? He's, hey,
One thing, so I don't bring it up at the meeting.
oh, this is you, huh?
What's going on over here at the garden? What's going on over here at the garden? Do they know that that water will be taken away at any time?
Oh, I'm giving it
They built a
Buddy Mike.
shelter, what the hell you call it, a glass
And email.
piece, and they got the wooden fence up and everything.
That's the important one.
They got it from Lowe's. That's that Lowe's playground stuff.
If you're right out of paper.
I just wanted to make sure
Hey,
that
we got a
they
new
knew,
book in here.
because once they build that park, that property's gonna be hot.
Relax.
It's in the agreement.
Okay. So I know that one lady's gonna be mad.
Tomorrow's meeting.
What is the TC? Talk to me. TC. Hartford.
What? I didn't do it.
You're gonna greet me. I didn't get a hello.
Hey, this is city stuff.
Comes their entertainer.
Hello,
Oh, no, that's
Miss Kelly.
like
How are you?
attorney.
Hi,
I was
I'm good.
close.
How are you, my man?
That because for some reason we aren't done by 6. I usually
Entertainer slash attorney or entertainer?
Can you test me?
Well, I think it did paperwork where they can do 20% of the 5 beers I drink.
I haven't even, I'm terrible.
That's one beer, so that works out perfect.
Well, I've seen these things about
Yes, ma'am.
I know.
Jody passes.
Oh, yeah.
To 1949.
I wasn't about to touch
Right.
that.
Hey, it was great.
I
It was a fun time. That place looks
I think
great.
you can do it.
February birthday. We
It's
might
getting
send you
better
something.
out there, you know.
Just
Hopefully by next year, we'll have a nice little outside bar. Things like
Then
that.
we'll be up and running.
Yeah.
Be up and running on these properties. I mean, little by little, it's just gonna be a whole new
The only
downtown.
thing I told my wife was, you know, maybe put some on the walls, some kind of acoustical,
I think so, that would be
some
good.
kind of cork or something like that.
Incorporate it in. You can
I
do
got a
that.
nice place made.
Have the sound out.
Depends upon how it goes tonight.
I told you though, we're loud, but everyone I talk to.
Oh, East High Street, up against Levy, buy it.
You know, the fence in
Couldn't
the
really
back.
Ricketts
and everything,
property.
solid wall in the back, so the sound.
Ricketts
goes
property.
front.
Do that?
Yeah.
No, down East High, not west,
More shit.
east.
I'm just trying to fix him so he.
Houses I got surprising.
There's about 4 or 5 of them. And Ricketts
Yeah,
owns
try to
like
keep
3 of them.
everybody happy.
Well, we quit at midnight, so I didn't wanna get.
There ain't no room for her. It's right up, they're right up against Levy. But, they're nothing but drug homes and
I told you about this.
Yeah.
Nothing more trouble with us. We're not mad at you. But the one thing they're mad at us either.
Man, I don't know where that's at either.
Try to get together with us. We never did this. Try to make a common goal. Tony, you worked out some stuff with old Bobo.
I think we worked great with it.
Try to be nice and try to
me
work
and
out with us.
Bobo are tight now.
Bobo, he told me one day, he said, I don't know how Tony ever. I said, Tony's all right. There's nothing wrong with Tony.
What? The pen?
I said, Tony wants the best for the city.
I just didn't want the neighbors,
I'll take
when
it.
that old lady said that music didn't bother her and they're right across the street, it's like, they don't bother her, it
But I
shouldn't
know.
bother nobody.
No, and we
You'll
were
be
loud when I
fine.
played there.
Just work with us and we'll try to make things work, you know?
It's hot in here.
Hey, don't freeze us up.
Tony, you got a meeting tomorrow?
Old people. Hold it, I just said it.
Firehouse meeting, or meeting about the park
Hey, Paul.
on the 17th.
Turn that down in the 60s, it'll freeze up. They wonder why.
When they canceled last week and they got this week,
I'm saying,
I can't make it at 10 o'clock in the morning.
When did you get that?
What's called just made me a copy. It's off his email that he got. You want this
I
one?
was hunting for you Thursday. And
I guess if you're not gonna be there, I'll try and be there.
Somebody's gotta be here, Tony.
What time?
10 o'clock.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry about that earlier. I get nervous, so I saw the light was on.
Supposed to be somewhere tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, and I can't think where it's
Can't
at.
remember where you're
Really?
supposed to be? That's all right. Just call your local attorney, he'll tell you.
That's right, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'll forgive you.
Do that on purpose.
You can keys or
I know where I'm supposed to be, at your dad's house.
Yeah.
Got water coming out of something over there.
Really?
Yeah.
We were just up there on Saturday. My brother, they had a party for my brother's wedding. It was nice. He probably got drunk and ran over something in a golf cart.
It's something to do with it's in the basement. The line set, I guess it's dripping water or something.
Really?
What on? What have you been doing?
That's the city.
How come you didn't have a nice vacation?
Oh, it was
matter?
fine. I mean,
So here.
my mother lives in Austin, Texas. She had this wild idea of trying to drive somewhere, meet halfway, and then France.
You gotta come back.
My mom's around.
There you
Go fast food.
Still mom's son.
It's her turn.
Yeah, no, they just do it close to
Yeah.
I mean, all it was about a visit with mom. Because when we that took her youngest daughter.
I know Larry's got enough farm ponds.
Oh, heck.
Well, yeah.
Well, wait till you get
Let's
18.
get this meeting going. We're late. Now I lost my paper. Start the Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission meeting of October 16th, 2017. Have roll call, please.
Director Brian Messmer. Here. Chairman Tony Abbott.
Here.
Vice Chairman Randy Abner.
Here.
Secretary Dennis Hutchins.
Present.
Member Owen Cross.
Here.
Member Paul Seymour Sr.
Present.
School Board Member Brian Johnson is absent, and City Attorney Del Weldon.
Here.
All righty, moving on. If everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes from the previous meeting, I'll take a motion to approve or... So moved. Motion to approve by Dennis. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Randy. All in favor? Aye. Minutes passed. Do we have any announcements from the board? Moving right on to the financial report.
As of October 9th, the balance for redevelopment was $1,904,611.38, and after our committed monies towards projects, it's $482,247.11.
Right. Moving on to new business, Brian Messmore, 501 Arch Street.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to walk up to the podium.
All righty.
It's like I lose control when I'm way over there.
It's not that, we just don't pay attention to you.
Mr. Seymour gives me those really mean looks from way down there, and I just want to be sure they're real.
Good at that.
Okay, first of all, I hope everybody's doing well this fine Monday. First order of business under new business is I would like to table 501 Arch Street and 215 Margaret. Just a minor development out of those two pieces of property that I wasn't aware of, and I'd feel better about tabling that and discussing that at the next meeting.
Fair enough. All righty.
In addition to that, I would like to throw in another opportunity that I was presented with today. This is 300 Margaret Street, which is directly across from Acapulco's.
Okay.
This picture,
Across Margaret, directly across
directly
Margaret.
across from Acapulco.
Got it.
Good doctor. It's,
But it's not on the side of Margaret where the other house was. It's on,
It's a little modular home.
oh, okay.
It doesn't look nothing like this anymore.
Okay.
Has a, I think it's a double wide construction home.
Okay.
It's in a certain level of disrepair. Was contacted by the property owner, and they are willing to let that property go under our $25,000 threshold for $24,900.
That's a heck of a lot with
How
that,
big
isn't
is the
it?
lot, Tony?
I don't know, I don't know the exact dimensions, but it's a good-sized lot.
Single corner lot.
Yeah.
But it's a corner.
Isn't it wider than 33, though?
I don't think so.
Hold on, might be on here.
It's a single corner.
Probably 33 deep off of Margaret, and then 132 wide with Margaret.
Off of Arch.
probably.
We are looking to demolish that, aren't we?
Yes, that would be an acquisition and demolition property.
Shouldn't be too hard demolition that, and there shouldn't be anything in there.
Well, no, and, we've talked about that, that's an entrance street to downtown, another way down, and, we're looking at some other opportunities there, but that just presented itself, interestingly enough.
24.9?
But I was out, so today I followed up on it.
24.9?
And the only other option would be, to go the average of 2 appraisals, but I don't know that we need to do that.
I don't think we want to do that.
No.
Have any interest from the board?
Yeah, I think we should move on that.
Want to make a motion to buy it for 24.9 then?
I do.
All right, I have a motion by Dennis. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Randy. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Go ahead and give them our...
Mr. Chairman, for what it's worth, we should keep in mind, Arch Street is one of our main arteries.
Yep.
In and out of town, so it's important.
We got a business right across the street there,
Right.
too. A lot of people see that.
Okay, next on under new business, I have just an update on Tri-State Battery. You remember we agreed to support Tri-State Battery and Honda, Mr. Terry Miller, for a redevelopment project. This is the one over behind the old Kroger Plaza. It was the old Doc Fox?
Fox's.
Veterinarian office. He contacted us a couple times over the last couple weeks, but essentially what he's determined at this point is that the current structure is not suitable for rehabbing. He would have been happy to come tonight, but I can share this message with you. So once they've looked at this and done some work, they think that a potential building site would be actually up and out of the floodplain on the same property. So, in a nutshell, he's saying the next critical step for him is if the soil proves suitable for compaction and construction, that he would like the opportunity to readdress Redevelopment Commission for consideration in the project. So essentially, the project that we discussed and approved a number of months ago is null and void because it failed. So he's just saying, hey, I really appreciate it, thank you, and obviously would like to come back, and I told him that he has the right to come back and make another proposal when he's prepared. But just trying to give you an update on what's going on, because sometimes you and I have talked, sometimes I just know it and I don't think to share everything that's going on all the time. So I was trying to run down the list and make sure you were up to date on some of these things.
All righty.
All right?
When's he coming back, do we know?
It'll be a while.
All right, so you'll give us some notice?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then, are you going to old business now?
Is there any other new business?
I don't have any other new business.
I see Mr. Berry's in. Were you here for your Arch Street property to see if there's any interest, or?
The bid's going out for the High Street property right next to it, so I just have a few questions.
Okay, well, we'll wait till old business for that then. So now we'll move on to old business then.
Can I go first since I'm standing up here?
No, you sit down and let Mike come up here.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. 542 West High?
542 West High, we have a closing scheduled for October 25th. So that project is proceeding.
That's the white building with the, looks like a church to me.
Yeah.
Got the steeple in
Yes,
front.
sir, that's this project that we worked on from last meeting down on the West High.
Okay.
In addition to that, just one other quick update, unless you have any further questions. Center Street, we did get back one appraisal on that, and it was at $16,000. That's just for the lot. This is the house that burned down on Center Street.
So we've advertised for that?
No, that's just the
We
appraisal.
have not advertised.
We have not advertised, we need the other appraisal back, and then we can
Then
begin
we
the
can.
advertisement.
How much was it, Brian?
16,000.
Okay.
So there is, for those of you listening, there's quite a bit of competition out there for these lots, so during the advertisement phase, I would suggest you make a good offer.
Yeah.
Mr.
there you go.
Chairman, that's a nice location.
Yep. Well, maybe we'll sell it for more than $10 then. It'd be nice. I've got a question for you, Mr. Mesmore, before you leave there. The building across from where we're going to build the park, with the side that the bricks are all falling out, the faces
Yep.
of the bricks, we own that now, right?
That's correct.
Do we have any plans on fixing that siding before the wintertime comes, or is that something we need to do? Because it seems like it's getting worse and worse and worse.
You know what, I do not know. I think, we need to have that conversation. I think the firehouse is another piece of that. I think right now, with the firehouse, we're, as it stands, just kind of keeping warm and letting the park progress, and
Right.
hopefully the demand will increase for that property as the park begins to take shape, and we can get a better opportunity there. The row house, I would have to defer to my construction guys over here on what we think we should do as far as those bricks on the outside of that row house.
I'd put some fencing up as soon as possible.
That's what I was going to suggest. Since the Fall Fest is over, we got that fencing, right? We can put it up the full length of the building?
Correct.
Well, that's a Band-Aid, and then is there any kind of, I think the question goes beyond that, what about any sort of,
Do we need to?
I don't know what the engineering, what they've got figured in, but I would leave what's up there now, I would leave on there throughout the winter, just help protect those bricks, keep from getting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add something. Pat Kreider, she's not here tonight, but she had a study done on that building, and they know through Rizzo's report in that engineering study what causes that. And it's the water coming in from the top that goes in from the backside. So if we do anything, we got to get the top part fixed. But it's in that engineering report that she has.
None of
That's
that,
been about $5,000.
none of that was fixed before? I thought that was all new
No,
roof up there.
that's not fixed. That's after all that.
Well, I think Tony saw that at one time, I think, there was a federal grant that repaired.
Correct.
Yes.
It's that engineering report. It's detailed.
I think that has been corrected, though.
Well, I thought it was all correct.
Get the report from Pat, Mario. She's got a
so then
copy.
the question, I know enough to know that it's wearing and the winter could be hard on it. I don't know if it requires immediate action before this winter,
It's getting worse.
Oh, yes.
It hasn't been corrected.
so if you want me to explore that, I'll be happy to dig into it.
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and look into it if you would.
We're talking about the row house still.
Yeah.
That's the row house. The firehouse, we were just going to get a furnace up and running, weren't we? Then there's a furnace in there.
Just keep it warm for the winter, and
See if you can get a hold of somebody to fire up a furnace, or, get the furnace going.
We
All
had Mr. Seymour look at the inside. He recommended a small heater just to keep it at temperature in both those locations.
Yeah, there's electric in there. To plug in for small heaters.
Can I ask a question?
There's just a panel in there.
This is to the Redevelopment Commission. Okay, I'm talking about 3 properties now. If you add in the Carpenter's building with it, when you get the Carpenter's building, and you group it with the firehouse and then the row house, are your plans to go in, because all those buildings are pretty much gutted, right? Are your plans to go in there and put a little money in it so they can be marketed reasonably? Or what's the plan, say, after the first of the year? I mean, because that's when you're going to probably want to get that started, right? I mean,
Well, we have bounced the plan for the firehouse back and forth, whether to what I call white box it, and then we think, well, maybe that's not the right thing to do. So I don't know where we're at really on these. We really haven't made a decision on what to do with them. Or just go out for RFPs and let somebody do whatever they want with
Well,
them?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, the problem with white boxing it, which we've discovered, is we're deciding which way someone wants to decide a restaurant,
Right.
and that's dangerous, so.
Well, what about, I mean, we've had a couple, I'm going to say 2, 3, 4 maybe, restaurateurs approach us. These are people that are established, that have restaurants in other areas in northern Kentucky or Cincinnati or whatever. Would it be worth putting a number, when you do the RFP? Because right now, the way it sits, all of them told us the same thing. We can't afford to go in there and make that into a restaurant and make it into a business.
Right.
Because it's a shell, right?
Too costly.
Too costly. And I understand that, and I think we all understand that, right? But are you guys interested in the RFP, maybe of putting a dollar amount that you are willing to put in there? Listen, the last thing I want to do, I mean, we all know the history of the firehouse building and the grants and all that crud. We know that and what's happened, but if we want to make it into a legitimate business, something's gonna have to be done to it. And I understand what you guys don't want to go in and white box it, so to speak. I understand that. I mean, but we're gonna have to have a plan.
Right. If we don't white box it, you want to put some money to boot, put it up
Something.
there,
You're gonna have to
Yeah.
have something to entice it into a,
make it worth their while.
yeah. And then you guys can decide which restaurant you want. I mean, it's just gonna be
Well,
based.
Mr. Mayor, the problem, I'm all for it on the firehouse, because it's doable. We could do a little budget.
They need 3 of them.
The row house on the end, the
understand.
one we bought, it's a shell. I mean, literally a shell. No electric, no nothing.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the one wall that is deteriorating on the outside, which is still structurally okay, needs immediate bracing up on the inside. So it's a different story there.
Yeah,
Be hard to do a budget or
right.
something like that.
Well, and Carpenter's building, you're gonna have to take a look at as well. I mean, I think
Carpenter's
that's
has
pretty,
some potential.
that's a pretty cool building.
Yeah.
Make a nice little mini brewery.
Mr. Chairman.
Now, one of, just to, one of the things I do is run around and try to hear everybody's idea, and you laughing at me over there, is try to, herd the cats in some ways and, hear and regurgitate and express where I think we're all going. And a couple comments on those 3 pieces of property. One, the Carpenters Union, one line of thought was that we would kind of wait and see what the development project was that was going to replace the buildings that are to be demolished, and see if that can be incorporated into that new structure, or if there's any relationship there. I'm not saying that's the way to go, but that was one reason for not doing anything, because it might fit into the schematic, the design of that new facility. The firehouse, I think it's reasonable to think that we would participate at some level. Hopefully, the public dollars there have created an increase in private interest, and perhaps the proposals could document what they're requesting, and that may be put us in a better position from a cost perspective than offering it up front. Don't know that, but it's possible. And I think, for the most part, if anybody's looking around downtown, I think they know that there's a certain expectation that we might participate. But, so that's kind of the chicken or the egg, half a dozen 6 or half a dozen the other kind of thing. How far do we want to go with that? And on the row house, I'm assuming at some point we'd do the same thing with that, but I think to Tony's point, we probably need to get in there and make sure that thing's stable.
Make
We gotta
a
contain
nice
the damage.
bakery.
We got to contain the damage.
Yeah.
Right. You have something, Mr.
Mr.
Olson?
Chairman, one thought too, earlier in the year when I was proposing to buy one of the properties and rehab them and so forth, What I'd done to kind of try to bound the issue on construction costs, because I was going to have a commercial space, a retail space below and housing above, I started going in and talking with the businesses on Vine Street in Cincinnati, talking with them about the architects that they chose, and ended up talking with an architectural firm that did the Soto restaurant. Very reputable, very good business or company. What he laid out for me was a phases of sorts. So they came in and they looked at the buildings, they did some mock drawings, some conceptual things, kind of with input from me, of course. But they also had it scaled as to almost like a Chinese menu, like I could pick certain things and whatever fits within my budget, they would scale it to meet that. But these are companies that know the restaurant business very well. They know the retail space very well. They also know kind of the feel of the downtown areas really well. And it would have cost me about $20,000 had I engaged him for the entire project. But that is an option for someone to come in that understands the needs for square footage and understands what you need for spaces around tables and all these kinds of things. And it's really not a ton of money to engage with a reputable architect to come in and do some mock-up drawings for you. Yeah, I don't know that it would be time or money wasted to even attempt that.
You talking about the firehouse?
I'm talking about any one of the buildings that you have over there. If you wanted to do some low-level thinking about it, you could engage into an architectural firm that does this kind of stuff, that is known for doing quality work here in Cincinnati or close to us, and get some ideas. Maybe give you a better understanding of, maybe narrow the focus a little bit for you. And like I said, it cost me $2,000 to do that, to just have the conceptual stuff drawn up. Obviously, we didn't engage in the full contract, but to oversee the project throughout the entire thing, to manage the construction people, the remediation, the demolition, any of those kinds of things, it would have been about a $20,000 total cost to me to have this architectural firm, which is very reputable, walk through that whole process for me.
Olin, what was his assessment of the two buildings in particular, one being Thomas and the other being Scudder?
Of those buildings, the one that I was interested in, Jimmy Thomas's building, both the construction side of a construction outfit that he worked with very closely in doing, I'm trying to think of the name of the buildings. It's unimportant, but the Jimmy Thomas building, by both of their assessments, was a sound building. That the bow in the wall was present in the next building, which is a separate building that has a separate brick joint between it and the Jimmy Thomas building. I think it's Jimmy Scudder's building. That from Jimmy Scudder's down to the Carpenter's Hall, those buildings weren't salvageable. At least it wouldn't be worth it to try to salvage them. But the Jimmy Thomas's building, by his assessment, was a sound building, and we spent time in the basement. We spent
You're talking about the primary part of Jimmy's building,
The primary building.
not all of Jimmy's building.
Well, I don't
There's
know.
a section that isn't in the primary.
If you look at the storm pipe that comes down on the exterior of the building, the brick joint
On
is
Short
actually-
Street, or?
On Short Street.
Okay.
The brick joint's actually behind that. And immediately on this side of the storm pipe, you'll see the bow and the brick starting to show up. So they're two completely separate buildings.
Okay.
You can see it in the roof line, you can see it in the brick.
That's Thomas's building.
Yeah.
And the back of that building, Tom says, that wasn't in good shape at all. I mean, the windows are angled.
Jimmy Thomas's was, like I said, by their assessment, I can put you in contact with these individuals. And I can give you the work that I had done, because it has value, and you can use it however you please. But by their assessment, that building, put it in their words, was far better than several of the buildings they had redone on Vine,
What about Scudder?
over the Rhine area.
What about
Scudder's, they said it was not worth the money.
Scudder come down.
Well, we're already moving on those buildings anyway,
But I
so.
just-
All right.
But
Yeah.
without even salvaging them, the two buildings that you want to keep, the row house and the firehouse, this firm or one like it would be a firm that you could talk to help you get some ideas and narrow the focus and provide some input for something that's more marketable. $7,000.
Well, Your Honor, to that end, and I know Pat came in late, but I think that what Owen's talking about, and then also the presentation that Pat set up with Kathleen, who was involved again in Vine Street and over there on, I think that in order to maximize the use of these 3 buildings plus the other properties that we're getting ready to develop, you've got to maximize the interest, and you do that by reaching out to the community, engaging someone that can connect us with experience, that's done that before. I think that's how you maximize the use. I think that's how you maximize whatever investment we make. I think someone said that RFPing with the potential to contribute protects us, and I think that's true, because then they present a plan, and then we can kind of pick the best plan, and that's the chicken or the egg. That's how you put it in the right order. And I think Pat will talk a little bit about that. Pat had some concerns also, like Owen said, with, whether we demo the buildings. I know we're opening bids, but whether we demo them completely or we demo them partially, I think that goes hand in hand with knowing what our plan is for that property, because, we only have one chance to develop this entire area. So I know I've talked to Pat about it, and I know you guys have been presented that, but for whatever it's worth, I would encourage that kind of liaison, or that kind of person who can bring in that knowledge and experience. Then the other thing is, that's the long-term planning. I think what also has been presented tonight is, maybe, if I'm hearing it right, would be some authorization to go in and look at those 3 buildings with an immediate temporary, just the ability to secure them, for the winter. So I know we've gone back and forth, but I think those are 2 different things, and I didn't know if you wanted to authorize Mr. Messmore and Mike and Mario to do those bare bones, whatever needs to be done to secure them for winter.
You think it'd be a good idea if we went out for quotes on somebody to come in and help us with what needs to be done with the buildings? After we get them shored up or whatever, we have them do that? What you're talking about, somebody like Kathleen? Should we go out for quotes or RFPs for that, or?
Well, really what I envision with Kathleen, and I talked to Pat about it, would be for, some of the members of the commission, and certainly you, Mr. Chairman, to meet with her, but, I don't think we necessarily need to invest a lot in that. I think we're looking for someone who would come in and help us develop these buildings, and any compensation she would receive would be based on what she would deliver, rather than putting a big financial outlay up front. And that's kind of my understanding of what Kathleen could do, or what Owen's talking about, what Owen did. I saw some of the work that Owen generated, which was terrific. And if we had, that's one engineering firm, or one architect firm that helped develop over the line, there's 10 of them. And someone like Kathleen could give us all 10. We'd have 10 designs for the Scudder building, let's say, and then we could kind of pick them. And that's different than what we've done in the past, but that allows us to get this thing right, since we only have one chance, and since we're talking about a concentrated area. Everything we're talking about is just in one block, and we want it to be beautiful to match up with our civic park.
Okay. Well, then I would need a motion to let Mr. Messmore and Mario work on the 3 buildings to see what necessary repair before wintertime, if any, or whatever we have to do.
3 buildings.
Carpenters Union, row house, firehouse. I don't think I'm missing.
Are we jumping the gun a little bit on going forward for fixing them up, or securing them rather, for the winter, before we even know what our intent is to do with the buildings?
Well, all I meant was to do the bare minimum, and that way it doesn't interfere with the intent.
No, I'm not arguing that concept. What I'm saying is, we're in a meeting tonight to open bids, to talk about taking down 2 buildings. What the cost will be to take down 2 buildings. Are we still in that meeting?
We haven't got to that part.
No, but we're going to be in that part. I would recommend that we continue to go forward with this meeting, and if we have a desire to set another meeting for that purpose, let's do so. But not in this meeting.
I think you're only talking about those 3 buildings,
We're only talking about those 3
Not the 2 buildings
buildings.
that you're opening the bids for.
nothing to do with Jimmy Thomas's
Two
gutters.
separate- I think you guys.
Oh, you're talking about the other one?
Yeah, yeah.
You're getting around two separate
Okay,
things.
Just need to make
Okay.
sure.
Okay,
it's
sorry.
I definitely got them blended together somehow.
No, I might have said it the wrong way, so sorry about that.
I just need a motion to allow Mr. Mesmore and Mario to look in to see what we need to do, just to get them winterized so there's no more damage
That's
through
a
the
great
winter
idea,
to them,
Tony.
basically.
And the safety of the building.
Yeah. So
And
can I
I'd
have a
make that
motion to do
motion,
that?
absolutely.
Got a motion by Dennis, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Randy, all in favor?
Aye. I'm sorry, guys, I
That's passed.
misunderstood.
You go ahead and look into that for us, and then, as far as bringing somebody in,
I don't think we would need an official action, just, you know, what we could do is just kind of get something set up, invite, you know, invite 3 out of the 5, how many goes here? And you could just, you know, Mr. Chairman, you could kind of pick who participates in that and just do it informally. I don't think any action's really needed yet. Until she could show us what she can deliver to us, and we don't want to invest anything.
oh, I'd rather come talk to all of them, I mean, myself,
Okay.
but,
Do we have any interest there that we don't know about?
huh?
Ever come to the redevelopment meeting?
Okay,
Yep,
Yeah,
come
I
to the
think
meeting.
that's the appropriate thing.
okay.
Could you invite her, Pat? Do you have her number, don't you, or?
We can get hold of her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, those guys have it too, I'm sorry.
Got it.
All righty, well, that sounds good.
Next meeting.
Any other new business? I have it.
That was old business.
I have a little bit new one. We have been looking into property on East High. Mr. Ricketts contacted me, and he's very willing to sell. So if, is there any interest from the board to all the houses on the levee side of East High? We've had a lot of problems. There's some of them that are vacant, and some of them are filled with drug-related things. Cops are always being called there. It just seems to be a nuisance. So if there's any interest in buying them houses, there has been in the past. So I didn't know if it's gonna be renewed. We could tear them all down and build something nice there. 'Cause there's like 3 of them that need to be tore down.
There's one vacant over there now, isn't there?
There's at least 2 of them vacant that I know
What's
of.
the price, Mr. Chairman?
I have no price, that's what I'm gonna do. We wanna look into getting a price. Mr. Ricketts owns 3 of them, I think.
The little bit of work I've done on them, all would require us, based on the initial price, for us to do appraisals.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be cheap to do it.
Yeah.
Nothing's cheap.
Well, you know, but I understand,
Yeah.
you know, we're in the middle of the civic park thing right now. I'm just saying, you know, every time I come up with something, I hear, well, you know, we got this project going and this project going, and I'm not trying to stifle anything here.
I'm just asking.
But
for
I'm just
opinion.
saying, I mean, Scotty, from my memory, Scotty and his partner won a lot of money for those buildings over there. And, you know, quite frankly, I like Scotty a lot, but he bought a couple of those on spec because he thought a levee gate was going in there, all right?
Why don't you let Mr. Messmore talk to Scotty and say, hey, if we get to appraisals, are you willing to take the,
If he wants to feel them out, that's great.
or that?
See where he is.
You know, if he says no, then you got your answer.
I think he's more willing to sell them now than he has been in the past.
Well, I think Brian should talk to him then.
Brian needs to work with him.
I got a question for Mike. Once those houses, let's say you can buy them, you guys gotta know what to expect once you own that property. I believe we got a 20-foot easement on the bottom of the levee. Once those houses are gone, I don't know if you're gonna be able to build anything.
Does that easement?
That's the question.
You've also got the tow drain back there too.
Does that easement include over where the railroad tracks were, or does it stop at the railroad tracks?
No, it'd come on,
Because that's
Toe of the levee.
That's
Yeah,
the toe of the levee.
goes
And
to the original toe, not necessarily
what you
where you
see,
see it,
yeah.
but
I
where
say,
the,
where is the original toe? Because the tracks were there.
There are some relief wells there, and there are some collector system back there, and they're awful close to the houses. especially going on down toward the end of East High. Now, the one that
railroad
he
jets
owns,
out there too.
the one old house that he owns, it might have a little bit more room, but you still, you got that issue. So I'm not against you guys buying houses to clean up the neighborhood,
That's what,
but don't expect, I just don't know if you could build anything there.
We'd have to look at that, but they could build all the way to that easement line. So it, potentially, it could be redeveloped, probably not in the same configuration that it is today, but I believe that it could be redeveloped.
Couldn't we buy, tear it down, and make a green space out of it till we decided what we wanted to put in there at one
Absolutely.
time? You know, we don't need to be hasty and throw something in there and then, oh, we should have did something else, so.
And I guess a couple things going on here. First of all, I think we can take a look at those properties and the property lines and make some general observations and report back to you guys. I don't know that you have to make a decision tonight to pursue those properties, since there's some question about, you know,
I think we
what
should
the potential
authorize
is.
Mr. Messmore to talk to Scotty and do some homework.
see, there would be three,
Yeah,
owners-
we'd be doing two things. We'd be looking at the properties and getting some prices.
there'd be three owners of all, four owners of all that property. Slaybacks are willing to sell now. And I don't know who owns the apartment building next to them. And then you got that little brick house. I don't know who owns that.
That's easy enough to find out.
Got Ricketts. So you'd have four owners of all the property down there.
So we're essentially identifying that area as a project area,
That's, yeah.
a unique project area with unique characteristics, unique boundaries, in a, a prime location between downtown and Hollywood.
So you got a little work to do then.
Mr. Chairman, I would also say, and just add to what Mr. Seymour and Mr. Messmore are saying, that I think that one of the key factors to remember for us going forward is that this year the legislature took an opportunity to kind of set a number for redevelopment by authorizing that $25,000, and I think that that's because that is, a price point that they've identified, and I would encourage us to stay under that cap whenever possible, and I think that's what the state has indicated should be what we're paying for these redeveloped properties.
Did he contact you?
Who?
Scotty? Or did somebody
It was Tony
contact
that
him?
brought-
I don't remember the
He talked
first
to
time,
me, but
to
it
be
was
honest
after
with
he
you.
talked to Mr. Messmore earlier.
Talked
I mean, right
probably
now.
3 or 4
you
times
know,
over the past year.
We got a lot going on, and
Oh, I know
all
we
of a
do.
sudden, we got about 7 pieces of property that are for sale,
Right.
and we just kind of let what our main property possession is right over here, the new Civic Park that we're going to be building. Are we going to be, as redevelopment, are we going to foot the bill for that, or is the city? I mean, we're spending a lot of money every time we turn around. It kind of scares me. I ain't used to handling that kind of money, fellas.
Well, I think at this point in time, we're just saying, hey, does it make sense? And give us some authorization to kind of look at the property, the boundaries, the tow lines. At the same time, I can figure out who owns the properties, what they might want for them, and we'll know more than we know today about it.
Yeah.
If there's a general interest.
Let us know if it's worth.
And that way, we
investing
don't have
money
to
in.
spend any money, but we can get a little smarter about it.
Good, good. But we still haven't answered any questions on the firehouse number 1 or the Carpenter's Hall, which, that's out in limbo, as far as I could tell, just listening.
No, not really.
I'd like to see some answers.
Not really, because they're gonna ask her to come in and take a look at those properties.
That's later, but right now, Paul, we have Mario and Mr. Messmore going in those 3 buildings to see what we need to do
That's correct.
to winterize, just for lack of better words, to winterize them
Protect them.
and protect them. And then we're gonna bring somebody in to talk to us about it. So we're getting a little movement on them.
All right.
Well, and this, I think the thing to remember is that, we've invested, Lawrenceburg historically has invested a lot of public money. And hopefully, we're reaching that point where the park itself will generate enough private interest that we don't have to participate as much or at all. So that's why I'm personally not freaking out about the firehouse, because I think it's the demand for the firehouse is only going to go up over
Right.
the next 6 months,
Absolutely.
as long as we can keep it from falling down or freezing up.
But it's not $100 piece of property.
No.
Depends how you structure the deal.
24/9.
Oh, $100, no.
Okay, so moving, I think we got everything answered here now. We'll move on. Where were we?
Mike Clark, old business.
Back in starting old business, Mr. Clark, since quote openings.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We
Before you
did
get started,
receive,
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Clark. All these bids are sealed?
yes,
Okay, haven't been opened?
well,
Never opened.
I'm asking the question.
Never opened.
okay, we
Not that I don't
did,
trust you, Mike, but I don't trust anybody.
we did receive 3 quotes for the demo project. The first one is from O'Rourke Wrecking Company.
Can't hear you, Mike.
Okay, it's from O'Rourke Wrecking. Okay. And their bid amount is 174,000 even. Let's see, they do have their bid quote form. Their conflict of interest. Their E-Verify. Their Form 96. They do have a detailed project schedule included. And they have their company overview for their work history. So I would recommend that we do accept this as a qualified quote.
So they're good to go.
Yes. Okay. The next quote is submitted by Logan Creek LLC. Okay, their lump sum amount is $232,000.
$232?
Yes. And they do have their bid quote form. They have their Form 96. They have their E-Verify. Also their conflict of interest. Yeah, let's see, and they do have their complete financials and work history, and they do have a schedule, so they are also a qualified quote.
All righty.
And the third and final is from Wayne Contractors. Okay, and their lump sum amount is $127,000.
127, did you say?
Correct.
Wow, what a
They
difference.
they do have their big quote form. Their Form 96. They have their E-Verify, their conflict of interest, Okay, their Form 96 has their work history included in it. Let's see if it's got a schedule on there. Okay, they have a start date. Okay, they have a start date for their schedule, and it just refers the timing of the contract specs, say that it has to be done by the end of November.
So then, they're all right then, they have everything?
Yes, I believe that we could go ahead and qualify this one.
There's a big difference in prices there. Have you worked with any of these companies before?
I am familiar with all of them. I think O'Rourke actually did the demo for the old City Hall and City Garage.
Okay.
Logan has done, not necessarily for the city, the last project I've seen them on, they did the demo at the Golden Corral. And Wayne has been around forever. I mean, I'm sure you've seen their buildings up there in Miami Town. They're a very reputable firm, so I feel comfortable with all three.
That's what I want to know, if you felt good about all three of them, with the difference in the prices here.
The other two decided not to bid.
Pardon?
The other two decided not to bid.
These are the only three bids he has, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we had two other contractors that attended the mandatory pre-bid meeting, and they both declined to bid this project.
Well, looking at this, do I have any recommendations from the board to accept one of the three?
I make a recommendation that we accept O'Rourke. I've known them for a while, and they are, in the situation that we've got with those buildings tied in, I think they would be the bunch to go with. They do an awful lot of work in the city. Not the city of Lawrenceburg, but the city of Cincinnati.
Well, that's not the lowest bid, Paul, and
I don't think you have to go with the low bid.
Can I make a suggestion?
No, but I think you'd have to ask legal counsel, because I believe you have to have a justifiable reason not to accept it.
But you qualified all three of them.
Exactly.
that's the thing. If all three qualified, then we should really go with the lowest one. If they're saying they're all qualified, we have to have a reason not to go with the lowest one. Not just because you know that.
Where's Wayne Contractors from?
Miami Town.
Miami Town.
Oh, okay. I thought they put up
Right
metal
along the
buildings.
interstate.
Off 275, where you can see their.
But I thought they put up metal buildings.
No.
They do that, they do demo, they do rock crushing. They do a full gamut of different types of construction projects.
All right.
And it's clear with all three of these companies that we want to keep the Carpenters Union building? They all know that in their bids.
Yeah, that's not even part of the scope, other than to protect both the Carpenters buildings and I believe
The adjacent property.
Mr. Barry's buildings.
And that's to tear the whole thing down, get it all out of there, hauled out, filled in what's need to be filled in.
Correct,
And set, right?
yes.
Now, are we ready to make a motion on this, or?
I think Mr. Hutchins had a question about the asbestos.
Well, that's for the abatement.
After
That's
this,
Okay.
after this, I wanted to.
Sorry.
Anything else?
Pat has her hand.
Miss Pat, do you have something to say?
I'd like to say something. This is my last effort here. I think you all know me and know that I have a real passion for this downtown. So anything I say truly comes from the heart. This is not just frivolous, okay? And I know, and I am so excited about this park and the development and the acquisition of the property around it. I can't tell you how excited I am. However, I really think that before you demo those buildings, you might think twice. I'm not so sure, I know you all are well-intentioned, I'm not so sure it's in your best interest. Last night, Bill and I were downtown. I don't know, Cincinnati had this big Blink Festival. I don't know if any of you went down there. Amazing. We drove through over the Rhine, and yes, I know Lawrenceburg is not over the Rhine, not trying to equate it in any way, except that they have a lot of old buildings. I cannot tell you how many buildings they are rehabbing over there. Buildings that look way worse than what we have here. There are signs on, my gosh, 30, 40, 50, 60 buildings. Those things are selling. They are filling them up as quickly as possible. You know what I get? I get requests for loft apartments. Where do you find a loft apartment? You're going to find a loft apartment. When people say loft apartments, they're thinking of apartments in old buildings with the brick walls and everything. We don't have them, and I get requests all the time for them. Those buildings have the potential for loft apartments.
Hey, Pat,
Okay,
to interrupt you, Owen gave us,
right. And
Were
he
you here
just
for that part?
Yes.
Okay, I'm
And I
sorry.
just
I thought you
heard
came
him
in.
say that he actually had somebody come in and look, and the one building obviously is questionable, but the Thomas building, they consider it sturdy, it's strong, it's a sound building. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, do you really want to spend money to demo a building? Yeah, they look terrible. Okay, they look bad. No doubt about that.
Pat, I wouldn't walk on that third floor, because I'd say I'd be on the first floor.
Okay, but right now, it's screened off, okay? If a person who has construction and engineering expertise tells you that's a sound building, shouldn't we at least respect that judgment?
Well, here's the next thing we would have to go into. Now we want to tear down Scudder's buildings. Now, we're going to tear down Scudder's building, and will that affect Thomas's building? Because I could probably tell you it would.
It's an issue. It's an
And
issue.
now we're in bigger trouble.
I'm not saying it's not an issue, but do you really want to spend some money and tear down a building and have to pay for demo when maybe you didn't need to spend that money? And here's the other concern I have, okay? You can take these properties down, all right, and then you're going to look for developers. Hopefully, you're going to find developers, but I'm sitting here, and I've watched for years. Those two park properties that you're going to build on now, those were demoed probably 20 years ago. The burned-out lot on High Street, demoed 10, 12 years ago. The Lotus property over there, demoed how long ago? And here's my concern. Everybody always thinks, well, we've got these lots, we're going to get developers to come in and do it. Guys, I'm not so sure that unless we really have a good plan, that we are going to get actually something on those properties. So that's my real concern here, is that I just want to see everybody spend their money as wisely and as carefully as possible, and this town come out on top.
Yeah.
That's my only concern. So what I'm saying is it possible to bring some people in, or to go out and try to find a developer who says, hey, you give me that property, I'll rehab it. And you have an agreement that says, you rehab this property in X amount of time, or else you're going to demo it and build new. You can write contracts like that. You can tie people into obligations so that the project does get completed. But what I'm saying is, maybe you should see if there are developers out there before you start tearing down and spending money to tear down.
Now, Pat, we've got two row houses that have been there for 20 years.
That's
empty.
right.
Nothing's been done with them.
Which is more reason why to bring people in and to say, this is our vision for our park. This is all the property that we can control. Because I think a lot of times developers want to see a mass. They don't just want a onesie here, spot development. They want to see a mass development. I think you have a greater opportunity now to get developers in when you've got this much property and that kind of a civic park planned than you have ever had. And that's what I'm saying. Can you table it and see what's out there before you take something down? Because it may actually, like I said, people like these old buildings, they like loft apartments. You may actually be not doing yourself a favor. I know you think you're doing the right thing right now, but I'm just asking you to open your mind to those possibilities and just wait a few months. See what's out there. See what you can get. You might get better than you ever expected, or you might get nothing. I don't know, but does it hurt?
We have two buildings up against the river, the beautiful loft apartments, and nobody's wanting them right now. Maybe once the park is in, like you're right, maybe they'll go quick. But to me, I don't want to take a chance of tearing down one building we know that has to come down, that's right in the middle of those. And what will it do when we tear it down and don't tear down the other one?
Well,
because I know the other one is not in that good a shape as they say it's sound, because the back of it, I refused to walk into the backyard. I was afraid it was falling in.
well, perhaps the engineer could actually tell you, or a person who's involved with demo could actually tell you if there is an issue with that. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing I think we all ought to consider. Time, okay? And I'm not, listen, I'm one of the tighter people in spending money.
Amen.
That, Oh, well, anyway, we won't go there.
We all got bobbing heads.
But the thing is here, we don't have a few months, and I'll tell you why. I mean, we may have a little bit of time, but I don't believe we got a few months, because construction on the park is going to happen fairly soon, okay? I mean, actual digging up and everything, the demolition and the putting in the utilities, underground utilities and everything is going to happen pretty soon. Breaking ground is going to happen. Once it does, we probably have 12 to 15 months from what I think they're telling us. And that could be off a little bit. If it makes sense to ask for somebody to come in and some of these developers to come in, I'll be honest with you, I don't know who to invite to come in. I mean, maybe like Kathleen does, I don't know. But once we start doing our work on that park, the last thing we want to do is have to redo anything because we waited too long to do anything with those properties, and we got to tear up the street again, or whatever. Now there might be a way to do it from the back. I don't know I don't know all that stuff. Mr. Seymour probably does, but I think though you run up against a little bit of time, and there's some variables here. There's some unknowns, right? We don't know if anybody is interested in those properties where they stand now or not, okay? If they are, bring us an offer. We don't know, so, do you take a chance and say, we're going to tear them down, which I think that's where everybody was going with this, and hopefully somebody want to build new, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Scudder property has to come down no matter what. I mean, that's been determined. I agree. The last thing I want to do is have a $6 million or a $4 million park over there looking at the buildings the way they are now.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I would agree with that.
So
Yeah, you
I
can't
think
do that.
you're going to have to. I think what I don't know. You guys are holding the ball on this, but if there's people out there that want to come and look at the Thomas building and say, yeah, we can do this and we can get it done in 12 months or we can get it done in 8 months, and here's our idea, that's one thing. But I don't know who those people are to contact.
Well, I know yesterday in going through to OTR, one of the things I saw on a number of buildings was a group called Structural Strategies. They seem to be on a whole lot of buildings, Structural Strategies, and I had, from their logo and their banners that they had on all the buildings, I had the impression that these were people who did building restoration work, and that might be an expertise that you might call upon. And I understand this timing, and I'm not saying sit on this forever. Mm-hmm. No, I don't think you can do that, and I don't think you all have a comfort level with that.
Right.
But just to maybe just investigate a bit more to see if there is an advantage in keeping at least the Thomas building.
Well, and one additional point I want to make, I mean, we bring up all these other vacant lots we have that have not really been properly marketed, so we can't say that they've been vacant for 20 years, nobody's ever done anything with it.
Now, a lot of them we've been
by
saving
choice.
To the
By
proper
choice.
time.
We've been using them for other things.
Exactly. So, I mean, you can't gauge it on that. But let's be honest, there's not been a lot of people, a lot of private development that wants to come to Lawrenceburg and spend $8-10 million.
And
So, I mean,
that's what I'm.
we hope there is.
Pat, I'm complete with you. I would not want to tear down an old building. I'm the last one who would want to do that. But I think with our park going here, and I think we need to move ahead with those buildings and demolish them and build something nice there.
Well, I personally think at least one of those buildings could still look awfully nice, and you might be very happy that you kept it.
I'm afraid if
So-
we did it that way and we teared down the Scudder property, something would happen with Jimmy's property, and then we're going to be another 6 months to a year, try and tear it down later.
And there's
That's
one,
what would
Mr.
happen, and
Chairman.
then that would mess up our park project.
There's one other thing that nobody's talked about in this room today. Cost of rehab sometimes is almost cost prohibitive compared to
Absolutely.
tear down and build new. That's a factor in life.
It,
I've had to go through it on many buildings, and there's people in this room that have had to go through it.
Dennis, I have 5 buildings.
No, I know, I'm just saying, but you know,
We
we
have
haven't,
5, I know.
Pat,
Yeah.
to this point, we have not said those words in here.
Oh.
So.
And that's
where does the-
reality.
Where does
But-
the cost end up here?
But there are people who do this, do it well, know how to do it.
Got it.
And all I would ask is that you maybe explore that possibility and just wait till you really have a really
Well,
good
The
answer.
mayor brought up a really solid point, and that is that we're starting almost immediately with the park over there. So how long can we wait before we interfere with how that park's going to be? I don't think we can wait any time. I agree with Tony. I think we've pretty much at the crest here. Proceed.
Well, I don't think a few weeks to get an opinion would be bad, but that's certainly your decision. You know, I would really be remiss in my job and in my feelings as a
Appreciate it, Pat.
property owner here, that I think that it couldn't hurt you to wait a few weeks. Thank you for your time. You didn't
Thank
have to
you.
give me the time. I appreciate it.
your heart.
Appreciate it.
What about as a compromise, you give it 4 weeks?
I'd like to say something for you. I'll go on that.
All right, Mr. Seymour?
If that building was pretty, if that building had some architecture behind it, I'd be right with Pat.
Absolutely.
They got a block off of Walnut Street, they started laying brick, they didn't buy any fancy lintels. When you do the inside of a building and you want to rent loft apartments, you want open floor plans. When they built them buildings back in the day, everything was all tight. They probably got 2-foot walls up there in the middle of them, all that structural. Now you get back to where Dennis just talked about, it costs a lot. Guys, here's the thing. We're an administration that's been put here to make some decisions. We started on this park talking about it as soon as we got in here. We've got a chance to roll on this. I want to roll. It's an ugly building, I'm all for history, but you go to Walnut Street and you look, I would fight for some of them buildings before you'd be able to tear them down. But those buildings right there are nothing but an eyesore, and you guys can keep whatever kind of building you want to go back in there. You can tell these people, they can reproduce. They can come up with something that would look very good. Matter of fact, if you find any, I've heard talk about the fire escapes. I think there's some ornamental iron on the front of them buildings. I say you buy that. I don't know if we've made a deal or not, but that's probably the property.
Part of the spec to.
Yeah,
recover and
that's
save.
city property.
So the city property would be the fire escapes and maybe some of the front iron on it.
The balconies out there.
Well, I'd like to see y'all have control of what gets put up. I agree with, we can't let it go modern. I think we need to do something. We need to have control of it. But these guys that are architects now, they could come up with something that looked very similar. We can do something real nice, but don't handicap what you got going on, because it takes an awful lot. And I'm not a fan of those buildings. They're plain, they're just generic buildings. There was no creativity at all in those.
You got a nice fire
I would
escapes.
be behind her 100% on 50 other buildings in town, but on these right here, I want something. About all you can do to make that building look good would be to paint it and put new windows in it. I think we're all expecting more out of that, and how are we going to get retail in the bottom of that building? It's going to be a nightmare.
So your suggestion of waiting 4 weeks, I don't think we have 4 weeks to wait. So it's up to this board here to make a motion to accept one of these 3 bids. They're all qualified. You want to go with the lowest?
Chairman, before we make a motion, I too want to join you and say, Pat, thank you, we appreciate it, but I think we're too late for that period of waiting. We're right at the park here. We got a meeting tomorrow, we have to make some decisions on. And everything is, one thing affects the other. But I do appreciate you coming to the podium, but I wish we had done it earlier.
Dennis, I did say this to several people earlier, but he wanted to hear it. So
Well, I don't
he
think,
did it several times.
fair enough, I was just trying to say thank you. Okay.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
I have 3 bids here. Do I have a motion to accept one?
I'll make a motion, we accept the lowest bid.
Wayne Contractors for $127,000. Do I have a second?
I second.
And a second. All in favor of accepting Wayne Contractors' $127,000 bid?
Aye.
I hear 2 ayes. Do I hear anyone? Against accepting that bid?
No.
I'll break the tie with an aye.
Okay, so that means
I'm voting aye.
I'll do a roll call. Okay, I'll do a roll call. Kelly, please.
Member Owen Cross,
I vote for it.
Member Randy Atkins,
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Thank you, Dennis. I didn't have to vote.
Well, I wanted to
7.
wait and see.
So, ayes have it. We accept the Wayne Contractors' $127,000 bid to demolish the 2 buildings. Moving on.
Mr. Chairman, does
Oh.
Mike Clark have a time period on that?
It's supposed to be done by November, isn't it?
At
Mike?
end of November, it has to be complete.
Next year or this year?
This year.
One other,
Next month.
something else the board want to know is how's the abatement going on those buildings?
Doing a little slow. It's a little tougher to get the asbestos off Jimmy Thomas's walls than first expected. We're about a week and a half behind right now.
Can they work behind each other?
They're gonna catch up. I mean,
Yeah, we're 2 weeks out, probably 2 weeks from today before the contract will be executed and notice to proceed is awarded, so.
But they haven't run into any problems on the asbestos that they didn't
Other than
anticipate?
harder to get off than first
Okay,
thought.
okay.
One thing I want to mention, you guys might want to say something to the workers there. There was one day before Fall Fest, I think it was, or the first day of Fall Fest, somebody went by and all the doors were open in the evening time. They were saying, they forgot
They weren't working? Nobody was on site?
nobody was on site and all the doors were open. So,
I have a question for Mario. Do we have the keys for except for the pry bar for the carpenters union?
We're still using the big.
We're still using the pry bar? Okay.
okay, moving on. Approval of claims once properly certified.
Excuse me, I have just a question.
Would you say your name, please?
Tom Berry. I own the property right next door. I don't know if this is premature or not, but is there anything I need to do to contact the tenants during the construction? Is this from a safety and liability issue? Is this?
You may want to tell the tenants to make you aware, you know, and we've told the contractors in our pre-qual that if the construction starts any destruction inside, far as cracking or, you know, the too heavy of vibration, to let us know.
Okay. But as far as their safety is, because they are attached buildings, there's no issues?
Right now, no.
Okay.
No.
Very good.
And the other thing is, we did meet with Avail as far as the extermination of the pests that may come from the demolition. They're going to give the surrounding residents 2 treatments, but it's going to be after the demolition.
Okay.
Mario, what phone number does he give those people that live there?
Mine, I've got cards I can give you.
Okay, very good. I'll get it after the meeting. All right, thank you.
No problem, Tom.
There's just a common, his roof, there's a parapet wall that shares with Jimmy's little appendix there on the side.
That's why I can see it up in there.
That'll all be fixed. Mike?
One thing too, I just want to make sure that the board is aware of this. We could not put any type of restoration to the Carpenter's building or Mr. Barry's building in this because we do not know what it'll be.
Fair enough.
Of course, the demo adjacent to those will be using extreme caution and care, but when this is done, don't be surprised if we don't come back to you and say, okay, now that it's done, we need to do these aesthetic fixes or whatever.
There may be
Right.
tuck pointing, there may be painting,
So,
there may be.
we just can't, we don't know what that is at this time, but after the demo, I'm sure we'll figure it
No,
out.
there's a difference in brick. They call it soft brick or something. That's what's on that row house, and that's why it's falling off. If those are the same way, same thing could happen to those. They get wet, right? So.
Correct. If
you
it's
got painted-
exterior, it's one thing, if it's interior brick exposes something else.
But
Okay.
just be prepared for us to come back in front of you to
You say we're
request.
responsible for any damage to the adjoining building?
Absolutely.
Well, listen.
What about-
I mean, if it's caused by negligence or the process.
Well, our contractor will have insurance on that
Have
also,
insurance for that.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Later, want to go over this. No.
All right. Can I have approval of claims?
I have a question on claims, we were just looking at it. Durbin Plaza, 523.15 for Lee Hansen. Just to remind me what it was.
Oh, I just give them. Mario?
I'm sorry.
Durbin Plaza, that would be the gravel we
That was
had
for
to
the
put in
gravel?
there.
Do we put more gravel in?
We actually took the large stone off that was on there from the distillers headed for parking.
Just curious what it was, thanks.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the claims?
Moved.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Passed. Comments from the audience? I ain't gonna give a second chance. Motion for adjournment.
I'll make the motion.
Yes. First, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Pat, I love you, I'm sorry. I'm in the same boat beside you.
Did you drop something?
Oh, okay.
He's falling out
Building on Walnut, there's 20 buildings. I think I'd be right there fighting.